What's the worst first day you've had in a job? My first job was at a new buffet in a small town when I was 14. They mass hired everyone that showed up to the interview. I was supposed to be a dishwasher, but when I got there for training, they handed me a ladder and told me to install the dry wall ceiling tiles in the kitchen. I obviously had no idea what I was doing and had a tile fall on my back, which caused me to slip off the ladder and fall on the ground. The owner was upset that a 14-year-old kid couldn't do the non-dishwashing task correctly and chewed me out and sent me home and to never come back. I had to pester them for months to get my $6.50 for the hour I was there. Shockingly, they went under in just a few months. True story. I got mugged on my first night as a pizza delivery guy. It was my second delivery of the night. I parked the car and had to walk a little bit to get to the apartment building. During that walk, two guys came up, hit me in the head several times, shoved me down, and took the money bag and the pizza and ran. I went back to the pizza shop and quit on the spot. The pizza shop owners sent me to the emergency room to get checked out. They paid for the bill. They made sure I got home safe and sound, so they were great. I was a supervisor in a technical support department for professional support, but was one day unceremoniously moved to personal support. The former was expensive and for it and experienced clients, the latter for regular home users. When I arrived in my new department, they were short 3 supervisors, so I was assigned all 3 teams and the place was like Lord of the Flies. I was given a printout of schedules and names with no way to find the people. I started tracking them down to find that nearly 1/3 of them had left the company, but previous supervisors didn't notify HR payroll. There were no files on what people were trained on, nothing. End of the day, my new boss asked how things were, and I told him people needed to be fired. He laughed and said, "We're understaffed already." I replied, "No, I mean the other supervisors who aren't doing any job I can identify, and you for letting it get like this." Things with him were a bit touchy after that. The layout was such that I had to repeatedly walk past the grill, where the floor was so covered in grease that it was like trying to walk across oiled ice. Super dangerous, because if you slipped, you were likely to hit the grill. I got yelled at for mentioning that the floor needed to be cleaned. I even offered to do it, but was told no. I was scheduled for an 8-hour shift, so by law, I got a 20-minute unpaid lunch break, which I was made to take about 45 minutes into my shift. I got yelled at for asking if I could please take my break closer to the middle of my shift. I was left alone as the only cashier and ice cream preparer, even though I hadn't even been told what everything on the menu was yet, let alone how to make it. I kept getting yelled at for not knowing when I went to the back, past the slip and slide of death, to ask for help. About 3 hours in, I was absolutely certain this would be a horrible place to work, so I told the owner that it was dangerous there. I was being yelled at by the manager for not knowing how to make things I had never even heard of, and the job was a bad fit for me, so I was quitting and leaving. He told me it was unacceptable that I wasn't giving 2 weeks' notice and yelled at me about it until I cried. It's been over 20 years, and I've never set foot in a Dairy Queen again. I've got 2, but both jobs ended up being great, and I worked there for a year, plus I worked at a flower shop in high school. The gal training me and I found this pink plastic gun thing. Obviously not a real gun, but we barely touched the trigger, and all of a sudden we were coughing and our eyes were watering. We had to leave the room and close up the shop early. It was some kind of pepper or bear spray. Job in college was a group home for elderly women with mental disabilities. Since I was new, I didn't know how to de-escalate situations yet. One woman had the mental capacity equivalent to a 3-year-old, and tantrums were common. She had a tantrum my first day, and not knowing how to deal, I made it worse. Went outside to chill out, and when I felt better, to come back, and the lady saw and ran to the door to choke me and keep me out. No one else was around. I went to the other door to get in. Obviously I'm alive, but damn, that was a night. First day at work, a library. I'm 18 years old, I look like I'm 12. My very first patron comes storming up and I ask, "Hi, how can I help?" And he starts cursing up a storm at me because his card had been deactivated a few days before. And I want to know why, and I want to know now. This is my first day here, let me get someone for you. His whole attitude changed, and I guess he thought I was like a baby library page or something, because I'm sure I looked like I had just witnessed Jesus curb stomp a puppy. It was a weird way to start a new job. Then I got chastised for not know what had happened last week at a job I didn't work at. I did an internship at a geotechnical engineering firm one summer, and after my initial orientation, they had me drive out to meet someone on a coring job. It was way out in the sticks on a hot day, maybe 101 or higher. The place was out in the mountains on a massive piece of private property, like over 10K acres. It was a collection of wineries. We do the job and they wanted me to leave early to avoid overtime on my first day, so they told me to drive home on my own and gave me some very basic directions on how to get out of this maze of mountains. The only real direction I was given was when you get to Y intersection, go down, not up. I leave, get to a Y intersection and go down. I guess it was a different Y intersection. I realized pretty quickly I went the wrong way but couldn't turn around because I was on a tight, unpaved mountain road that was too narrow to turn around. I drive a few miles, try to turn around in a larger spot and get the truck stuck. No one knew where I was and I had no cell service and no water, and it was probably 5+ miles back to the job site. I started walking because I thought I heard a road, and sure enough there was a rarely used public road not far from me. Eventually I sat on a log and considered the real possibility I might not make it back. I was starting to get disorientated due to exhaustion and dehydration. I collapsed on the side of the road eventually until someone drove down the road and saw me. They picked me up and dropped me off in the nearest gas station where I got some water and called my boss. The next day I had to go with a bunch of trucks to get my truck back. They didn't fire me either. Dishwasher at a small breakfast place when I was 14. Didn't tell me I had to supply my own gloves, and the dishwasher was right at the egress of the breakfast bar, so I had to constantly hopping out of the way of the waitstaff as they came back to grab plates. No sink, just a soapy bucket of water and an industrial dishwasher that was more akin to an autoclave than your regular dishwasher. Each time I opened it, steam would come pouring out. I was sweating my ass off. I burned my hands so bad the first time I grabbed a plate out of there. And the special for my first day was beer-battered shrimp. They were floating around in the bucket and sticking to my arms. First day working as a chemist in a quality control lab. The person training me told me, just so you know, every single person in this department has had to go on medical leave for a stress-related illness between their first and second year on the job. That definitely happened to me. From there, it only went downhill. I toured the warehouse and there were pallets of raw materials stacked so high and improperly they were leaning toward the walkway. There was a struggling rat on a glue trap, and the warehouse guy said at least it isn't squeaking anymore. Their walk-in cold storage had liquid leaking out the door. I went to lunch and it was like a scene out of Mean Girls. I was told I couldn't sit at certain tables and wound up eating by myself. Someone stole the cupcakes out of my lunch bag too. I realized I made a horrible mistake, but I really needed the job and the money. Plus the market was bad, so I stuck it out for 19 months. The place is currently in the process of shutting down and will be closed by the end of the year, so they eventually got what was coming to them. In the first few months of the pandemic, I got hired at a dog daycare, and the owner told me I'd be making $9 an hour as their receptionist. I go in to fill out the paperwork, and she tells me that she actually filled the receptionist position, but she has a dog handler position open for $8 an hour. I was hurting for money, so I accepted it. She told me I'd start right away, literally on the spot. She didn't tell me that before coming in, so I wasn't wearing proper clothes for it, capri pants, and she berated me for it and said next time I do it, I'll get written up. As she was showing me around, I realized the entire play area for the dogs was inside. There were no outside areas for the dogs to run, and as a result, the whole place smelled like dog waste. She then threw me in a gated area alone with a pack of large dogs without any formal or informal training. One dog was pretty aggressive and kept trying to bite me. She'd yell at it from the other side of the gate, and all that would do was get the dogs riled up. I'm not scared of dogs, but I was scared that day. She yelled at me for not being assertive enough with the dogs, but I didn't know the dogs' personalities yet, and I didn't want to start a fight between them or get attacked. The dog that was trying to bite me kept picking fights with other dogs, and she got mad at me for telling the dog no. After my shift was over, I never went back. I had an interview at Target the next day and got hired there at $15 an hour.